How Iran and the United States became the world's bitterest enemies. They were once the closest of allies. America and Iran, two countries that shared intelligence, traded weapons, and sat side by side in the great game of Cold War geopolitics. An American president once stood in Tehran and called Iran, quote, an island of stability in one of the more troubled areas of the world. Today, those same two countries are at war. How did it come to this? How do two nations go from allies to enemies, from handshakes in the White House to missiles in the night sky? That is the story we are telling today. And it begins not in 1979, not with Khomeini, not with the hostage crisis. It begins in 1953 with oil. In 1951, Iran had a democratically elected prime minister named Mohammad Mossadegh. He was a nationalist, a lawyer, a man who believed that Iran's oil, one of the largest reserves on earth, should belong to the Iranian people, not to the British Empire. So he did something extraordinary. He nationalized the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. He took the oil back. Britain was furious. And Britain went to Washington. And Washington, fearing that a nationalist Iran might drift toward the Soviet Union, agreed to help. What followed was one of the most consequential decisions in modern history. In August 1953, the CIA and British intelligence launched a covert operation to overthrow Mossadegh. They hired protesters, they bribed newspaper editors, they orchestrated riots in the streets of Tehran. Between 200 and 300 people died in the chaos. Mossadegh was arrested, tried to treason, imprisoned, and then placed under house arrest for the rest of his life. The CIA did not officially acknowledge its role in this coup until 2013, 60 years later. In his place, the Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was restored to full power. And as a thank you to America for saving his throne, he signed over 40% of Iran's oil field to American and British companies. This is the wound that never healed. This is the event that every Iranian child learns in school. The moment America overthrew their democracy to protect British oil. The memory of 1953 is the foundation upon which every single piece of anti-American sentiment in Iran was built. And from that foundation, the Shah ruled for 26 years as America's most important ally in the Middle East. The Shah was a modernizer. He gave women the right to vote. He built universities. He launched the White Revolution, a program of land reform and economic development that transformed Iran's cities. During his reign, Iran became one of the wealthiest and most powerful countries in the region. But he also built Savak. His secret police, trained by the CIA and Israel, became notorious for systematic torture, arbitrary arrests, and the brutal suppression of all political opposition. Thousands of Iranians were imprisoned, dissent was crushed, and the wealth of the oil boom flowed overwhelmingly to the elite, while ordinary Iranians fell further behind. By the late 1970s, the resentment had reached a breaking point. From exile in Paris, a 76-year-old cleric named Ruhollah Khomeini was sending recorded cassette tapes into Iran, messages that were copied, shared hand to hand, played in mosques and living rooms across the country. His message was simple. The Shah is a puppet of America. America is the great Satan, and the Islamic Revolution is coming. In January 1979, massive protests erupted across Iran. The Shah, sick with cancer, his army beginning to mutiny, his people in open revolt, fled the country. He left Iran and never returned. On February 1, 1979, Ayatollah Khomeini landed in Tehran. Millions of people filled the streets to welcome him. The monarchy was over. The Islamic Republic had begun. But the final, irreversible break came 9 months later. In October 1979, President Jimmy Carter allowed the exiled Shah to enter the United States for cancer treatment. For ordinary Iranians, this looked like a replay of 1953, America sheltering their oppressor, America preparing to bring him back to power. Khomeini called the American embassy in Tehran a den of espionage and conspiracy. On November 4, 1979, a group of Iranian students stormed the United States Embassy. They took 52 American diplomats and staff hostage. For 444 days, those Americans were held captive. The crisis destroyed Jimmy Carter's presidency. It poisoned the relationship between America and Iran at every level. And when the hostages were finally released on January 20th, 1981, they were released the exact moment Ronald Reagan was sworn in as president, not 1 minute before. The enmity only deepened from there. During the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s, America backed Saddam Hussein against Iran. The United States provided Iraq with military intelligence, even as Iraq used chemical weapons on Iranian soldiers. Iran lost an estimated 1 million citizens in that war. Then, in July 1988, an American warship shot down an Iranian civil passenger jet with 290 people aboard. The U.S. military said it was a tragic mistake. Iran called it murder. The list of grievances kept growing. In 2002, President George Bush labeled Iran part of an axis of evil in his State of the Union address, alongside Iraq and North Korea. In 2015, President Obama negotiated the nuclear deal, the JCPOA, where Iran agreed to limit its nuclear program in exchange for the lifting of sanctions. It was the closest the two countries had come to normalcy in decades. Then, in 2018, President Trump unilaterally walked away from that deal. The collapse of the nuclear deal triggered a new spiral of escalation. Iran began enriching uranium beyond the limits of the agreement. Regional tensions exploded when Hamas attacked Israel on October 7, 2023, killing around 1,200 people and taking 251 hostage. Iran had armed Hamas. Iran's axis of resistance, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, militias in Iraq and Syria, all activate. The Middle East had not seen tension like this in a generation. Israel systematically dismantled Iran's axis of resistance. Hamas devastated. Hezbollah's entire top leadership eliminated. Syria's Bashar al-Assad, Iran's closest regional ally, overthrown overnight. And in June 2025, Israel launched a 12-day war against Iran directly, with American airstrikes hitting Iran's nuclear facility. And while bombs fell from the sky, something equally dramatic was happening on the ground inside Iran. On December 28, 2025, protests erupted in Tehran. The Iranian rial had collapsed, trading at over 1.4 million rials to $1, 40% annual inflation, the price of bread, rice, meat, all rising beyond what ordinary families could afford. The economic pain of decades of American sanctions had finally reached the breaking point. The protests spread to all 31 of Iran's provinces. Tens of thousands took to the streets. Many carried the old Iranian flag, the flag from before the Islamic Revolution, as a symbol of what they wanted back. The demonstrations became the most serious challenge to the Islamic Republic since the Woman, Life, Freedom movement of 2022. The government's response was brutal. Internet cut off, security forces opening fire, thousands arrested. And then, in the middle of all of this, Donald Trump made an extraordinary offer. The man who bombed Iran's nuclear facilities, the man who killed Qasem Soleimani in a drone strike in 2020, the man who tore up the nuclear deal in 2018, that same man looked at the Iranian people rising up against their government and offered to help them. Trump said publicly, quote, "If Tehran violently kills peaceful protesters, the United States will come to their rescue." For many Iranians, it was the most confusing thing they had ever heard. The country that overthrew their democracy in 1953, the country that backed Saddam Hussein while he used chemical weapons on their soldiers, the country that shot down their passenger jet, that country was now offering to be their liberator. Some Iranians inside the country begged Trump not to negotiate with the Iranian government, but to support their freedom movement instead. Others warned that American intervention, even well-intentioned, would only repeat the mistakes of 1953 all over again. And that is the tragedy at the heart of this story. 70 years of history between America and Iran,